In the previous class, we learned how the culture media is produced for the proliferation of the explant, and now after the preparation of culture medium, it is poured in the culture vessels either in the form of glass test tubes or conical flasks. And now these culture medium vessels are ready for the inoculation. But before going to inoculation, because these culture mediums are very high in the nutrients, they easily attract the microbes like fungi and bacteria, and if they attacked by the fungi and bacteria, they may not useful for the further processes. Hence, these culture medium vessels should be processed by sterilization. So, next step we are going to learn, children, that is sterilization of the culture medium vessels. So, in the sterilization, all the culture medium vessels and the tools which are used in the tissue culture techniques, they should be sterilized by steam sterilization. Steam sterilization is a process to sterilize the culture medium vessels, and in this a specially designed tool, that is autoclave. An autoclave is designed for this purpose, and it will work with the principle of a pressure cooker. And in this autoclave, all the culture medium vessels and the tools which are used for this technique are sterilized at 121 degrees Celsius temperature and at 15 pounds pressure for 15 minutes. So, like this, steam sterilization is conducted to avoid the contamination of the culture medium with the microbes. And after steam sterilization, the culture vessels, the culture medium vessels are kept without any inoculation for 24 hours, that is 1 day. If any contamination is not there after 24 hours, then these vessels are used for the next step of tissue culture technique. And now we are going to learn about the next step of the tissue culture, that is preparation and sterilization of explant. Okay. So, explant means already we know it is a small tissue or any organ of the desired plant which we want to multiply, and this explant is always derived from the either meristematic tissue or buds or any vegetative parts of the desirable plant which we want to multiply, and it may contain many microbes on their surface, and hence they should be sterilized before they are using for inoculation. And mostly explant contain soft and parenchymatous tissue. Explant is mainly it is having soft and parenchymatous tissue, then it should be sterilized by surface sterilization. In surface sterilization of this soft and parenchymatous tissue, they will use 10% sodium hypochlorite solution. 10% sodium hypochlorite solution if it is soft. If the tissue is hard, then hard tissue, it should be sterilized by using 0.1% mercury chloride solution to avoid the microbes which are present on the surface of the explant. Now, explant is ready for the inoculation. Now, we are going to learn about the next step, that is inoculation. Inoculation means the transfer of the explant to the culture medium vessels, and this process is carried in specially designed chambers which are called as laminar airflow chambers. These laminar airflow chambers are specially designed and they are having the support of ultraviolet rays. They are provided with the UV rays so that if any microbes are present on either culture medium or on explant, they will kill these microbes and make the inoculation successfully. So, inoculation is carried in the laminar airflow chambers, and the next step of the tissue culture is incubation. Incubation means giving the time for the explant which is inoculated on the culture medium to proliferate into the callus, and maximum it will take minimum 3 to 4 weeks for the process of incubation. And in this time all the culture medium vessels, they are with the explants, they are shifted to the rooms which are specially designed. So these culture medium vessels, after the inoculation with explant, they are shifted to the rooms on specialized racks and provide all the requirements for the proliferation of the explant. The required light intensity, humidity and temperatures are maintained. And in the incubation period, this explant will absorb the nutrients from the culture medium and gradually starts dividing by mitotic divisions and proliferate. And after proliferation, it produces a mass of undifferentiated tissue, and this undifferentiated tissue produced is called as callus. And this callus do not show organogenesis, and after formation of callus, these callus are transferred gently into other culture medium vessels which contain different concentrations of auxins and cytokinins for further organogenesis. Let us see how the organogenesis will occur in the callus. Okay, when callus is produced, now the callus is gently separated and it is transferred into the other culture medium vessels which are having different ratios of auxins and cytokinins to induce organogenesis. Organogenesis means initiation of the organs like shoot and roots. Okay, now let us see how the organogenesis occurs in different concentrations of auxins and cytokinins. This organogenesis, initiation of shoots, is called as caulogenesis, and initiation of roots is called as rhizogenesis. This caulogenesis and rhizogenesis occurs at different concentrations of auxins and cytokinins. Normally, to initiate the shoots at low auxin and high cytokinin ratio, auxins and cytokinins must be in 1:3 ratio. So when low concentration of auxin and high concentration of cytokinin in 1:3 ratio, then the callus develop the shoots. Then the initiation of roots is carried by auxin to cytokinin ratio in the ratio of 3:1. That means high auxin to low cytokinin will induce the roots. So like this, organogenesis is induced in different culture medium having different concentrations of auxins to cytokinins. But first they will transfer to the medium having low auxin to high cytokinin to induce the shoots. When the shoots will grow to 2 to 3 inches, when the shoots will grow to 2 to 3 inches, then gently these are transferred to the other culture vessels which are having high auxin to low cytokinin to induce the roots. And once the plantlets are produced, and these plantlets are gently separated from the culture medium vessels, and now they are allowed for the next step of tissue culture, that is acclimatization or hardening. Let us see how they will acclimatize these plantlets which are produced by tissue culture technique. Okay. Now in this process, after removal of plantlets from the tissue culture medium, they gently wash those plantlets with water, and now they transfer these plantlets into small plastic pots or polythene bags which is filled with soil right, It is a special medium which is developed by the crushing coconut shells and the fibers so that it avoids the contamination of the microorganisms instead of using soil. And in this soil they plant the plantlets which are separated from the tissue culture technique, and these plantlets now they are covered by polythene bags to prevent the loss of humidity, moisture from the plantlets during the process of transpiration. So these are covered by polythene covers. It is carried to prevent the loss of moisture. So under low light intensities and high humid conditions Under low light intensity, shady light intensities and high humid conditions, these plantlets are allowed to grow minimum for 1 to 2 weeks. 1 to 2 weeks, so that these plants gradually adapt themselves to survive in the conditions which are almost similar to the field conditions, and this process is called as hardening. This process is called as hardening, and after the second week, when these plants are completely adapted, now they are shifted to the fields or the farming lands for cultivation. Like that, many major crops and food crops are developed in large scales by using the tissue culture technique. For example, tomato, apples, banana. These plants are produced in commercial scale by using the tissue culture technique. And now let us see what is the significance of the tissue culture technique in the advantages or significance of tissue culture program in the agricultural fields. So, by using this tissue culture mechanism, we can produce a large number of plants, in a short time in a small area, and hence this is called as micro propagation. Large number of plants in a small area in a short time we can produce, so hence it is called as micro propagation. We can also produce the virus free plants by culturing the meristems. Virus free plants are produced by culturing meristems. You know what are meristems? They are actively dividing tissue which are present in the apical regions of shoots and roots, and these meristems are having high auxin concentration and having the ability to elongate rapidly. And because of this property, the meristematic tissue do not attract the virus, they do not allow the virus to enter. And even though the parent plant is infected with the virus, any viral disease, we can produce the virus free plants by using the meristematic tissue from the infected plant. That is the important significance of the tissue culture mechanism, and mostly in this process they use the shoot apical meristems. Shoot apical meristems are commonly used in the production of virus free plants by using tissue culture mechanism. The next one is formation of embryoids. Embryo rescue means preservation and multiplication of the naturally immature embryos in some of the plants. In some of the naturally developed embryos, they are unable to develop into plants because of either dormancy characters or environmental characters are not suitable for their development, or lack of proper endosperm, or because of some internal conditions. Especially in the embryos which are developed between two different genera or two different species, and that type of embryos are rescued and they are developed into plants by using this tissue culture mechanism, and this is called as embryo rescue. So many naturally immature or undeveloped embryos can be developed by using this tissue culture mechanism. For example, maca pino coconut. It is a naturally occurring sport variety of coconut, and this coconut is very familiar for its jelly-like endosperm. And these coconut embryos are multiplied by using the tissue culture mechanism. One of the advantage and significance character of the tissue culture mechanism. right children? And now let us see soma clones. The offspring or the plants which are developed by tissue culture mechanism are genetically similar to their parents, and all the progeny which is obtained by this tissue culture program, they are genetically similar to their parents. Hence, all these progeny are together called as soma clones. In some time, there may be slightly variations in these soma clones, which are called as soma clonal variations. Formation of embryoids. So, in some plants, instead of production of the plantlets, they develop embryo-like structures. Embryo-like structures which are called as embryoids, and these production of these embryo-like structures is also called as somatic embryogenesis. Production of the embryoid-like structures is called as somatic embryogenesis, and these somatic embryoids, they almost resemble the zygotic embryos. They resemble the zygotic embryos except in origin. So, zygotic embryos are amphibictic, they are produced by the fusion of male and female gametes, whereas these embryos are vegetative in nature, and they use these embryos as artificial or synthetic seeds. So, these embryoids are made into artificial or synthetic seeds by covering the embryos with a chemical by name sodium alginate. This sodium alginate is a chemical which can act like a seed coat, and now these are called as artificial or synthetic seeds, and production of these artificial seeds is more beneficial because these seeds can be preserved for long time and they can be easily transported from one place to other place for further multiplication. It is one more benefit of the somatic embryogenesis by using tissue culture technique, and not only that, embryo rescue is also possible because of this tissue culture technique. What is meant by embryo rescue? The soma clonal variations are the slight variations which will occur in the soma clones, and they are very important in the crop improvement programs. Crop improvement programs. So, like this, all these are advantages of using the tissue culture program as one of the important for the multiplication of the different types of hybrids. So, we can develop the hybrid varieties also by using the tissue culture mechanism, children. So, these are the significance and importance of the tissue culture. Now, we are going to learn one more important vegetative propagation technique, that is somatic hybridization. It is also called as protoplast fusion. Actually, this method is developed as an alternate method for the scientists to improve the varieties of hybrids which are not possible naturally, that is intergeneric somatic hybrids. Here, two different plant cells, either which are not naturally able to cross, they are selected, and normally these plant cells are having cell walls. But with cell walls, the somatic hybridization is not possible because cell walls becomes barriers, and these cell walls are removed by the enzymatic digestion by using pectinases and cellulases. And after removal of the cell walls, these cells are now called as protoplasts. And now these two different protoplasts are fused, either by electrofusion or chemofusion. And during electrofusion, they utilize high frequency electric fields with short current pulses, or they'll use either sodium nitrate or PEG. Sodium nitrate or PEG, the chemicals, PEG means polyethylene glycol, and which are able to fuse these protoplasts and result in the formation of a somatic hybrid. And this somatic hybrid of different types, it may be called as heterokaryon. Heterokaryon means the cytoplasm of two different cells is fused, but the nuclei remain separate. This type of somatic hybrid is called as heterokaryon. Or if both the nuclei of the cells are fused along with the cytoplasm, they are called as synkaryons. And one more type of somatic hybrid is there, that is called as cybrid. Cybrid means cytoplasm of the two cells are fused, but the only one nucleus of one plant cell is retained and other nucleus is digested. Such type of somatic hybrids are called as cybrids. By this phenomenon, many plants are developed. For example, the bromato and pomato. Bromato is a somatic hybrid between brinjal and tomato, and pomato is a somatic hybrid between tomato and potato. So this hybridization comes under intergeneric hybridization, but they are not successful to produce the crops because they are not having desirable properties. But the first somatic hybrid is developed by Carrison et al. In the year 1972 by interspecific hybridization of tobacco plants, Nicotiana glauca and Nicotiana longsdorffi. These are of same genus but different species are hybridized by using their cells and successfully produce one interspecific somatic hybrid. And now we are going to learn about the haploid cultures. Now we are going to learn about haploid culture. Haploid culture means culturing the haploid cells like pollen grains and unfertilized ovules. But the most commonly used cells are pollen grains to produce the androgenic haploids. If haploid plants are developed by culturing the pollen grains, it is called as androgenic haploids. If they are developed by unfertilized ovules, they are called as gynogenic. But the most commonly used haploid cultures are pollen grains. And it was first introduced in our country, in our India, by Satish Maheshwari and Shipra Guha. These two scientists, they culture the pollen grains and produce the androgenic haploids, which are very useful to conduct the mutational breedings, and also they are useful to learn the differences in the genetic material. So androgenic haploids are very useful for mutation recording or mutational experiments, and also for carrying the genetic experiments. For all these, the haploid cultures are very useful. And it is not only that, after culturing the haploid plants by using pollen culture and treating with colchicine, by colchicine treatment, from these haploid plants, we can develop truly homozygous plants. Truly homozygous plants. That is the advantages of the production of haploid plants, and these truly homozygous plants contain the homozygous alleles for all the characters present in the plant. So these are the advantages of production of haploid culture, children. Okay, so with this the chapter is completed, and revise the content and practice the assignment, children. Thank you.